What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we're going to be analyzing the UFC 277 pay per view going down, headlined by the two title fights Moreno versus Kai Kara France, Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes, both fights rematches. And we're coming off some back to back good weeks. How we doing this week, Ozzy?
Hell yeah, hell yeah. We got some more mild weather hitting New York. I'm a little congested, little feeling a little under the weather, but two good weeks. Joe Body Bags Pfeiffer shipped it for the boys last night as well. But yeah, carrying that momentum. I said that I was feeling good. I think we were mentioning, a little downturn, and I was like, hey, we're staying on it. And keeping, continuing to look at every fight card. And the last 2 weeks have definitely been fruitful. I've been warming up to this card in a few spots, as we've been going on. So I'm looking forward to it for the most part. Overall, I think they've balanced it out with enough intrigue for me overall throughout. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into all 13 fights this week.
Yeah, and how did you do last week? What was your recap?
Just over 7 units up. Basically, only lost on the Claudio Silva fight, which had that at 230. I think that closed like maybe 160, 170. So, all right, bet. He took him down, and the 7 minutes he was dominating, and then he couldn't close the show. And then I trusted Alexander Gustafsson, so that wasn't a good bet. But everything else, really, really good. Curtis Blades money line inside the distance. Jack Hermanson best bet of the week. Jonathan Pierce, pounced on that minus 140. And then also that Leonardo fight that I mentioned, was definitely going to go the distance. Never even a doubt, never even a sweat. And I think you had a pretty clean weekend as well, right?
Yeah, 4.74 units for me on a lot of the same sides. Pierce, Jack, Blades. We'll take that Blades win all day. I don't know if I'm like a sick fuck or something like that, but the second he hurt his leg, I was like, let's go. Like cash
Yeah,
that ticket. You
it
don't
was
give
pretty. Go ahead, my bad.
I mean I didn't give a fuck about the missing the fight or sorry Tom Aspinall, but I didn't even really care that much about the injury. I was just happy to have the fight over with and the bet won, that's how betting is.
Yeah, I would have been down to see it play out a little bit, but I was even with the 15 seconds, albeit. I felt pretty good. Like I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to say, but I just
Hindsight
felt.
favorite. He's the hindsight favorite for sure.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned, I'm like, yo, I think Aspinall's gonna come out, swinging, but the guy throws like two naked leg kicks. Eventually, he was gonna throw one of those leg kicks, and Curtis Blaze is gonna just tackle him and spear him. And I just think that he was definitely gonna win the fight. But yeah, I mean, I don't really, I got no qualms about fucking winning like that. I had a huge bet on Chris Weidman at great numbers when he fucking broke his leg against Uriah Hall. So it is what it is, man. Like, hopefully with these injuries, I feel bad for people that were on Ortega and then Aspinall 2 weekends in a row. Right, that's pretty shitty. But Aspinall was a shit bet, dude. Like, you're betting that minus 130, minus 140. I just think that's a terrible bet. And yeah, I feel bad for those people. You hope to the injuries are kind of just like even out over the course of your betting career. But yeah, those are the pitfalls. And if you're on plus money more often, it kind of hurts a little bit less to get hit with some of those freak injuries.
Yeah, anybody betting this week, if you're betting Nunes in the main event, she might, snap her ankle or something like that and roll over third week in a row of the favorite going down with an injury in the main event. So tread lightly there. Last thing we'll say is, it's really just Molly McCann and Patty Pimblett's world, and we're all just living in it. That card fucking sucked, except for those two. Those two single handedly saved the show from how many boring decisions did we have in that card? And somehow it still turned out all right just because of those two. And we were
That fight
able
card
to
sucked dick. That fight card sucked dick.
it did. It did, but Patty the Batty is the real deal, and this guy's gonna be we're gonna be talking about him for a long time. So enough enough about
I kind of wish I listened to you more on that and just bet some more inside the distance. But I mean, you could see Levitt, dude, was very tired. Like even after that first round, and he was gonna get finished. Like it was just a matter of time. So
yeah.
we'll see
You
who
just
gets
saw
next.
you just saw like anytime Patty had success, he was like kind of close to finishing. And there's just such a big finishing disparity there. But that's enough about last week, right? Let's get into these fights. 13 fights, some pretty shitty prelims, a decent main card, but let's get into these fights. Welterweight division, Orion Cosce taking on Blood Diamond here. The odds for this one are -185. Cosce Blood Diamond +160. So I'll start this one off, and I'm labeling Blood Diamond a role player. I don't think this guy is completely a real fighter. I think he definitely got into the UFC on like a favor from Adesanya, considering they kind of come from the same camp. And this guy just is not ready to be in the UFC yet. I mean, we saw glimpses of how bad he is versus Jeremiah Wells. Tough test for his UFC debut, but I mean, I truly believe this guy just isn't up to par with these UFC standards. And I mean, Orion Cosce isn't a whole lot better, but I mean, his win on the Contender Series against Matt Dixon was actually a pretty good performance. And I think this guy has a solid skill set. He's definitely a good athlete, solid wrestler, and I just think he's better everywhere, more experienced, more committed to MMA. And I think he honestly is capable of covering this price tag, even though this is kind of a low level fight. I honestly think anything under 2 to 1 for Cosce is value. So anybody who got in on those early prices, I think it's a good bet, and I think Cosce probably covers on his way to a win here.
Yeah, I mean, Blood Diamond, the guy's just not good. Like, he showed nothing in that Wells fight. His ground game was non-existent, immediate mount. And he held on to the gloves, he held on to the hands, fought him a little bit, but he showed absolutely nothing in that fight. Even in the kickboxing fights that I saw of his, he didn't look very good to me. Like, even if these guys are striking at range, I honestly think that Cossi would probably still be Blood Diamond. This guy's 34 years old, has 4 MMA fights, and I mean he fought a fight that he rear naked choked the guy. So that other guy must have been fucking terrible. So yeah, Ryan Cossi, if you look at that fight on the Contender Series against Dixon, Dixon is not the best, but he does have a decent pedigree behind him. There was a contentious fight a bit. Okasi had the gas to turn it on in the third round, showed a decent ground game to me, and kind of like just moving through positions, especially in that third round. Against Rowe, he kind of stagnated a little bit in the clinch and, kind of focusing on taking Phil Rowe down. But, obviously Phil Rowe, he's a competent, he's like a better version of Blood Diamond, I guess. Like, he's just a much more competent grappler, trains with real guys, has been in the gym, plenty, has some experience, knows how he has to win fights as well in an organization like the UFC, and he was able to weather the storm. Stall out Cossi as Cossi was going for those takedowns, and then eventually just turn up the pace with the hands, and has big power as well. When he is throwing and connecting. So I like Cossi here. I wouldn't fault anybody for playing him. Obviously, it could be it's very popular side, but I don't really think that matters all that much. Like, and yeah, I don't some people are playing the over. I kind of just rather like maybe lean that Cossi side if you're on a little small bet to start off the night. I think it's solid, but I definitely wouldn't build like tons of parlays with the guy because I just think he's just not high level enough to do that. But I do think he's going to pick up his first UFC win here.
Yeah, the over is interesting. I feel like I kind of will go over. I think I see like a 2-3 finish for Cosce here, so maybe check out those props. And that's enough about that one. Light heavyweight division next. Nick Narigomanu taking on Ihor Potera, making his UFC debut. Odds for this one. A lot of recent movement here. Narigomanu -119, Poteria -101. And I'm talking a lot of movement here. I mean, in the past 24 hours, this line has flipped. And evidently, I bet the line 24 hours ago. There could be a correlation going on with that. But I'll pass it over to you, Ozzy. What are you thinking about this light heavyweight fight?
Yeah. So first off, the line movement. The recent line movement, like the one today from like +105 to favorite, there's like some tout that bet that released, you know, uh what's his name, Nicole, and made the line, move a little bit. It moved like
Is it me?
I was talking about. No, you're not a tout. But I mentioned this on Spaces the other day. I was like, "Hey, look, this is a -125 +105. Like, this could go flip at whenever they wanted to. It's like doesn't take a lot of money, but yeah, this guy, But I mean, real better. You bet this a little bit better plus money. But anyway, let me get into the fight. There's no way I'm betting Nicole at juice at +105 at +110. None of those numbers. I mean, the guy sucks. He's a walking punching bag. The way he's going to win this fight is he's going to look to clinch. The only legit wins he has in the UFC, what he hit Ike in the back of the head. He lost to Kmore. Like, how the fuck did he get that
Oh no,
decision
he
win over
won that
Kmore?
fight.
No, that motherfucker lost that
He won
fight,
all 3
and he
rounds.
definitely lost to Kennedy. No, 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 no. He definitely did not win all 3 rounds, and he lost to Kennedy as well. So, I mean, the guy's not that good. Obviously, he has, some experience. He has, 4 fights under his belt, but like I said, walking punching bag, his main strikes on the feet, like, you see him coming from a mile away. He chips away with leg kicks. I mean, look at his striking defense, dude. I'm not a stat guy. 38%. Look at his accuracy. 39%. This guy's doesn't defend punches, doesn't land punches. And Ihor, I mean, the talk of the town has been his record and all this shit. Look, if you're trying to compare this guy to the what's his name, Morozov, whoever the guy, the
Mozarov,
fucking
yeah.
Ukrainian guy, there's no way these guys are even in the same galaxy because I mean I watched Ihor before his contender fight and I ended up betting him. He was like plus like 295, 300, something like that. And I mean the guy looked solid in that fight. Like, the Polish guy, he kind of like was trying to grind him a little bit. But Ihor, he landed to the body, to the legs at distance. He landed a few clinch strikes and he has that ability to like the in between areas, like you saw that like the knockout, how the knockout manifested when the other guy kind of like takes a break and then he's just on his ass, throwing blitzing shots. I feel like that's what Negumereanu does oftentimes as well. And you saw that in the Kennedy fight when Kennedy just was, like I'm just not gonna stop and just I'm gonna hit this guy as he exits or stops punching. I think that's very live to happen in this fight, but I'm not gonna have any action on this unless it gets to like plus 120 on Ihor, then I'm interested. But other than that, this is a pass fight. Plus 115, plus 120, I'm interested. But if I was on bet Nicole, like I'll take him by decision. Like I don't really think he's finishing Ihor. Ihor's kind of a weasel. He has like some ground game as well. He's not like a noob on the ground. And I mean, look at Negumereanu, bro. His ground game is terrible. And then look at his regional tape or his regional fights. He's winning all of these fights by submission. How the fuck is he submitting guys on the regional scene with the ground game you've seen from this guy or lack thereof and the lack of takedowns as well? Like he got wrestle fucked by that guy Sakharov, and he's terrible as
Dude,
well.
Safrov's a
So,
good fighter. I won't tolerate any more
so
Nargomano slander.
listen,
I gotta
now,
jump
yeah,
in.
and now, yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Alright, so listen, Nargomano isn't good. Sure, he eats punches, but he is durable. You gotta admit, this guy does seem like he has a block head. And I mean, the range of how good to bad Ihor can be is huge. I mean, up until his like 18th or 19th pro fight 2 years ago, he was still fighting fake fights against 0 and 0, 0 and 3, 0 and 4, 0 and 2 fighters. Literally 4 fights in a row where he fought where his opponents didn't have a win. So this guy's, record is clearly extremely padded. And his past 3 fights, I mean, he looked bad in the 2 for sure against the Georgie guys. And then, on the Contender Series, he looked alright. I mean, he it was a nice knockout. But, I mean, Nargomano, we've seen him in the UFC for almost an hour. I mean, we've seen him against, some of the lower to mid-level competition in the UFC, so we have, like, a decent idea of where he's at. And I just feel like we know what we're getting a lot more with Nargomano than we do with Ihor. So I mean, I think that I gotta take Nick at plus money. I mean, I got in right at the right time. Plus 114 is what I believe I got. Not a huge bet, just 1.25 unit. And I'm just taking the guy with more UFC experience. I think probably a little more ways to win and just more proven to me, honestly, too. So it doesn't feel great betting against the Ukrainian, though. Gotta admit that for sure. But that'll take us to the next fight. Women's bantamweight division, Ji Yeon Kim taking on Jocelyn Edwards here. And this line is pretty close as well. Jocelyn Edwards minus 115, Ji Yeon Kim minus 105. Kim getting a lot of action this fight week. She was plus 120 at the start of the week, right when last week's card ended. And then people started betting Kim at plus money. And I mean, I get it. She's the much more experienced in the UFC. I think she's the cleaner striker, but she is moving up in weight here. I think that's a big factor to consider, considering Edwards is moving down from 145. She's made 135 a few times before, but Kim moving up to 135 for, I believe, what might be the first time in her UFC career. Actually, some of her early fights, yeah, the early fights were at bantamweight against Pudilova, but she lost that fight. Um, And I don't know, I feel like the weight is gonna be a disadvantage for Kim because she doesn't hit hard at all at 125. I don't see the power transferring too well up to 135. And Edwards at pure striking, she's not dreadful. That's definitely her best area. And we also saw Edwards stuff some takedowns in her last fight. Maybe she's been working on her wrestling after getting out wrestled by Rose Clark. But she lost to Rose Clark dominantly, guys. You got to remember that not that long ago, Edwards dominantly lost to Rose Clark, who we've seen look absolutely dreadful lately. So that loss has aged terribly. But Kim has also probably deserved to beat her past two opponents, McCann and Cachoeira, but just kind of let those fights slip through her fingers because she's just not the greatest round winner, and these decisions don't go her way most of the time. So I think I understand the bets on Kim plus money, but I just feel like people are going to get let down here. I feel like it's going to be a close decision, and I don't see enough of an edge to gamble on this fight, even at that small plus money. So I'll pass it over to you, Ozzy.
Yeah, I shipped Kim plus 120. Like, I mean, Austin Edwards is horrible. And you could talk about the weight, the any doesn't matter, dude, because Jocelyn Edwards, when has she ever looked good in any fight? Like ever. Like she was, going crazy against Wu, and Wu had this woman mounted. And she spent probably more of her career in bottom mount under Rosa and Jessica Rose Clark than she's ever had like dominant positions, herself. Like she's lost to Sarah Alpar on the regional scene. And I mean, I don't think the weight is an issue at all. Like Kim's gonna be much faster than this woman. If you look at that Pasquale fight, I mean, this girl, all her strikes are wide ass hooks. Like she goes like 22 for like 90 in head strikes, and all she throws is lead like push kicks. And Pasquale, she's got, a 6-inch reach disadvantage there. Even then, she still stuns this woman in the end of the first round and almost still wins the fight as well. And that woman is horrid as a fighter overall. But Edwards, her only strike there, she's throwing push kicks to the knee. She clearly did not want to fight her. Kim's gonna have some reach advantage here. She's got great straight punches. I mean, look at her two fights against McCann and Cachoeira. She throws like 150 strikes in both of those fights in the third round alone. And if Edwards is forced to strike with her, I just think Kim's gonna be able to land easily on her face. Like I don't even think it's a question. Like, Edwards like shies away from punches, she runs away. Like, what is she gonna do? Like, what effective offense has this woman ever put together? Like, is she gonna take Kim down? I doubt it. Kim's like, changed up the camp as well. She's training out in Thailand as opposed to training with John Wood, which I think is a big confidence increase. I don't think that Edwards is going to be able to throw those kicks. Kim's pretty good at countering kicks with her right hand. If you see in that Grasso fight, she did that plenty of times. She goes to the body, way better cardio, wears damage pretty well. Like the only time Cachoeira really had success is when she just went nuts in the third round and just started hitting her with clinch strikes and just walking through her power. But that's not gonna happen here. Like this woman got rocked by Jessica Rose Clark, or not Jessica Rose Clark, Pasquale. She got held down easily by Jessica Rose Clark, and I mean, and then she just had a fight 6 weeks ago where she took some damage. Like I mean, not a lot of damage, but then she needs to cut weight as well now to down to this 135 weight class. I hate Jocelyn Edwards. I think Kim's a great bet. You see that line flipping now to pick them. I think there's still value. At pick 'em minus 105. I think there's still value on Kim. Like you said, I think if she has any of those, either of those last two fights were wins, I think that this is an easy favorite Kim spot. I got her as a favorite, like Capper as a favorite. Big Cage as well. I think she's gonna be able to jab this bitch's face off. So give me Kim, and I will also be investing in Kim by decision plus
Yeah,
170.
good point about her training in Thailand. I remember seeing that. She was training with the Hickman brothers before the Agapova fight got canceled, and she was working on her wrestling there. But I think
Austin Edwards is
she'd
horrible,
be
dude.
wise
Come
to
on.
abandon that wrestling and just strike here. Um, but also Kim trains with Ramona. I'm seeing that's maybe a decent sign. Edwards is strong though, man. I mean, she's a
Where? Strong where?
in her legs, bro. In her
Where is
legs.
she
I'm looking
strong?
at videos of her lifting right now.
Jiggly.
I'm listening.
jiggly.
No, no, no.
She has no fight
I'm
skills, dude. She has
check your
no fighting
DMs, right? I'm
skills.
sending you a video of her squatting right now. She looks all
Don't
right.
send me shit,
All
dude.
right, next
Don't send me
next
shit.
fight, Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugitt. Is that how you say it? Fugitt. Um, and the odds for this one are Morales minus 650, Fugitt plus 425. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't look into this one that much. But considering how inexperienced Morales is, I don't think you can be trusting him at minus 600 here. So it's dog or pass from the money line. And that's really all I have to say. Did you look into this one at all, Ozzy?
Yeah, bit. I mean, I know Fugget a little bit. Like he knocked out that dude, Solomon, who he's from the Northeast up here, so it's disappointing for me to see that. But yeah, Fugget. I mean, he's overall kind of, I'm not saying he's solid, but he's competent. He's not the worst, signee, like short notice guy that they've ever signed. He's a southpaw as well, which I doubt Morales has fought many southpaws, but I just think the wrestling of Morales is going to be able to make the difference in this fight if it does get any kind of hairy, which I don't really think it will. But I could see Miles, being a little anxious, a sold out crowd there, in Texas, like a little maybe antsy, but I think he'll win this fight. I think he will go to the wrestling at some point. Fuggy, I think we'll be able to avoid some shots early, in terms of the striking. I'm kind of looking at that over 1.5 at minus 105, just because even if he does get these takedowns, like I feel like Fugit will be he'll offer some jujitsu on the ground to slow down Morales and where he's not going to just walk into an easy finish on the ground. And if there's not a easy path for a finish on the ground, I kind of just think that it could go over and it ends up being Morales kind of wearing him out a little bit later on and finishing with strikes. And I don't really think he's that huge of a power striker on the feet. So I lean toward that over. That's probably the only side I would bet. Here. But yeah, I'm rooting for Morales. I like my Latino boys to do well.
Yeah, I agree. Over, I mean, whenever these guys come in on short notice, I feel like they just go over. I mean, I feel like the opponents kind of, Morales is going to be a little cautious, and it'll probably go over. So, enough about that one. Lightweight division next, Drakkar Close, Hafa Garcia, fun matchup here. Close minus 210, Garcia plus 180. Ozzy, your turn to start this one out.
I'm quite intrigued in this fight. I mean, I think the narrative is that Close is like a better version of Hafa Garcia, which some people will try to tell you, but some of these people, like I said, they don't know how to profile fighters at all, so you should not listen to them. Um, but if you look at Dakar Close's career, like it's been 3 years since he's gone a hard 3 rounds. Even in some of these fights, like they're super competitive. Like the um, what's it called? The Yagos fight, very competitive. The Casey fight, competitive. Um, um the Benny fight, the Bobby Green, all the fights very competitive. Even the fucking Brandon Jenkins fight, like Brandon Jenkins getting his ass whooped. Obviously, he's getting bombed on. But there are moments in there where like you saw that Close had to let off the gas just because he was just wailing away on him way too hard. And what I do like about Rafa Garcia is he's very composed. He comes from a good camp. I think people question his cardio, but I think his cardio is actually fine. And I like his grappling here against Dakar Close. Yes, it's probably going to be a little difficult to hold down Dakar Close. But if you can just move a little bit and kind of avoid the overwhelming nature of like how this guy strikes, I think it's easy to be very competitive with him. And if you're giving me, I mean, I took some plus 190 today, actually earlier today. It's kind of moving a little bit, but there's some plus 180s still there, 185. I think that, Rafa Garcia is a pretty solid underdog bet here. Even though Close throws the calf kick, but he's just like such a generic fighter that kind of gets by on overwhelming his opponents, having some kind of grappling advantage, which I'm not sure he will have here necessarily. And I just foresee this being a potentially very close fight where Rafa Garcia could be extremely competitive in all areas, all facets, and be able to turn up and show a fight to Dakar that he has not seen in over 3 years. This guy's not gonna gas like Yagos, did. And I mean the Bobby Green fight, that was kind of weird. Like I thought Bobby Green won that fight. I'm not sure. Like Maybe I gotta watch it again. But when I watched it, I was kind of like, like I thought Bobby won,
He for
but
sure won. Like, what happened?
and nothing. I'm here.
Sorry.
Uh, no worries. But yeah, that's my take on it. I like Hoffa Garcia here. I think he'll show up here, and I can see this going to a split decision, honestly. So I'm not a split decision kind of better, but I could see that happening here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there might have been like a 10-second break in audio there. Hopefully, nothing happened. But yeah, I'm in agreement with most of that sentiment. I mean, yeah, close. I mean, he had obviously the neck injury with Jeremy Stevens, whatever that was all about, and he said it's a lingering injury, and I mean, it's still an issue. And I think he looked fine against Jenkins, but I mean, he was just so uncharacteristically aggressive in that fight because he knew he was fighting a low tier fighter, and he just isn't going to fight that way very often here. He's going to have to be a lot more measured. And I mean, Garcia is just a solid fighter everywhere. I've underestimated this guy a few times, and I mean, he's a solid boxer. He's tough. He's a good wrestler, and he's got cardio for days. I mean, that's what probably his best attribute is how good cardio he has, and he's tough. And I mean, he's even working on his ground game a little bit more. I think he's had trouble securing that position after getting takedowns, but that wasn't a problem at all in his last fight against Ronson. So I mean, I think this fight is just super competitive everywhere. I think Hoffa has potential to win the wrestling exchanges. The striking probably won't go his way early, but as the fight goes on in the second half of the fight, that cardio advantage might come into play here. And I just think Garcia will fight for your money, man. I mean, he's there's a lot of good Mexican fighters on this card, and I think that the spirit will be flying with them. There's actually only two, but yeah. Anyway, I still think it'll be a good night for the Mexican fighters on Saturday. And yeah, Garcia plus 180, good bet. Um, enough about that one. Highly anticipated heavyweight fight. A lot of chatter about this one this week. Dontel Mays, Hamdi Abdullah Wahab. We're just calling him Hamdi. And Mays is the favorite here, minus 190. Hamdi plus 165. So this line originally opened with Hamdi as the favorite. I mean, some random guy making his UFC debut on short notice with three pro fights all in the past year, I believe, and a pretty spotty amateur background is somehow as the favorite over Dontel Mays, with over an hour in the UFC cage. I think not an hour, not quite an hour, but almost. You guys hear me mentioning that a lot, but I mean that's just kind of my style. I like relying on the UFC fighters that we've seen fight different levels of competition in the UFC before, rather than this short notice guy who's just coming out of nowhere. One thing you got to know about this Hamdi guy is he trains at just an ordinary gym in North Jersey, like an ordinary gym where people just most of their clientele are casual hobby trainers, or people training. There's not really any pro fighters coming out of this gym, so that's a pretty big red flag, and just the lack of experience this guy has. Um, is very glaring. I mean, he seems like a solid wrestler, I would say, maybe slightly above average wrestler, but his striking is real wild. He just kind of swings hooks on the feet, and he's fought nobody. And Dontel Mays has been in there with some decent fighters, obviously Cyril Gane, and we've seen him look good in his past two fights, I believe. The Parisian fight, particularly, I thought was a good performance. I mean, Parisian, so he's a mid tier UFC heavyweight, and Dontel Mays dominated him in that fight. And also, Parisian is kind of a grappler, right? I mean, he's kind of a similar analog to Hamdi, and Mays absolutely dominated that fight. I really don't recall any adversity for Mays there. So, I mean, I think Mays is easily the side here. That's why he took so much steam. I got in early at minus 136. Actually, not that early. People got in even earlier than that. But I mean, I think he's approaching, near accurate price. I mean, I think he easily should be 2 to 1 here. So I mean, I think he's worth laying the chalk. It's probably not worth it at this point, but I think the Mays train is in effect this week, and I'm trusting him with my money. What about you, Ozzy?
Yeah, so I mean, the only things I like about Hamdi is I think he trains or he lives in New York or some shit like that, and he's a 93 baby. But other than that, I mean, this is just too much for him. Like, this is not the right fight for him to come into his UFC career. Like, first of all, He was in the Olympics, sure. Lost his first match kind of easily. Like was much lower in weight. You know, he's like 40 pounds heavier than he was back then. Kind of fat, kind of pudgy. He probably has to cut a little weight. Excuse me. He probably has to cut a little weight to make 265. You know, he's got some power that he could throw, but the thing is, like, Mays has not shown a bad chin. And, like, the odds of him, to me, landing multiple consecutive big strikes on Mays is just not, is I don't see it at all. So he's gonna have to get his grind on with the wrestling and take Mays down. And could it happen? For sure. It's heavyweight. Mays is not the most, high IQ guy. He got taken down by Nascimento as well, but the main thing here for me is like the gas tank. Like Hamdy's got to fight in this big cage as well. He's got an 8-inch reach disadvantage. Mays is pretty fleet of foot overall, so he's gonna have to cover tons of distance. Like Mays has been working on this grappling. You know, he's shown improvements in the last 2 years coming into this fight. And I just feel he's going to be able to pick at Hamdy front kicks, leg kicks, jabs. You know, he's going to be he's pretty competent everywhere. Like the guy's a good athlete and he's not bad skill wise. And in opposite of Hamdy, like you said, his training situation. Mays is at Jackson Wink where they do have plenty of heavyweights, like a good number of professional heavyweights, both in Bellator and I think maybe a few in the UFC as well. So I mean, he's getting good work in. He's pretty solid, I think. And I think he's gonna be able to pick at Hamdy, not get hit with the big shot, probably wear him down, and maybe en route to a round two or round three finish. So I got some Mays, a good deal of Mays, minus 125, 136, 140. I think I'll probably top that off a little bit with some ITD or round two, round three. But I just think this Hamdy dude is very, very likely to gas out, maybe get hit with some body shots here that rattle him a little bit. You know, big crowd here as well. He's gonna be swinging hammers, and he's like in that Dustin Clemens fight. I just thought that he looked terrible for the most part. Like some people are like, "Oh, it's all right. It's not a bro." This Dustin Clemens dude is. I mean, that guy's a role player as well. And yeah, Mays is just too strong. I think it's gonna be just any offense that Hamdy is able to put together. I just think it's gonna take so much out of him. You know, he's short notice as well. That I like Mays here. Maybe people could bet the over. I don't know. I'm not getting involved with that, but I like Mays and inside the distance for Mays as well.
That's gonna take us next fight, lightweight division. Drew Dober taking on Rafael Alves here. And Dober minus 184, Alves plus 159. Good amount of Alves action this week. He was over 2-1 earlier this week, so pretty popular underdog. You agreeing with the steam here? Or are you going against the market on Dober here, Ozzy?
I understand, people, wanting to take this shot on Alves. You know, a few guys that I, frequent with, we talk from time to time. They're taking the Alves shot at plus 195. You know, it's been moving down, since then. Personally, I'm waiting on a good Drew Dober line. I just think that Alves, yeah, is the guy dangerous for sure, 100%. But he has no process in reality, for striking, in the striking realm, and then on the ground, he still has no fucking process. Like he's diving on necks, diving on chokes, but just not high percentage stuff. I think it's gonna be hard for him to actually get Drew Dober to the ground. And I mean, Dober's really good with the pressure on the feet. He throws a diverse set of strikes as well. You know, he'll throw some elbows in the clinch, he'll throw some knees. You know, that kicks to the body, kicks to the legs. You know, he's got a great right hook and a left overhand as well. So, I'm liking Dober here by KO or inside distance. You have your choice. Maybe you could play the under here, minus 160. But I just feel Dober. It's gonna be look, I think, similar to that Alex Hernandez fight at some point. I think it'll devolve into that where, Alves is just circling, running away from him, circling, getting away from him, and Dober's just on the front foot and kind of chopping him down and getting to him. Dober's got some pretty his takedown defense not that bad. He's got good hips. He's strong. And Alves, he's just not a persistent wrestler. He's not the kind of guy where he will continue to chase a takedown and solidify a top position. So what could happen is like Dober, sprawls on a takedown and he gives up on it. Alves that is, and then he tries to chase the neck. But, the only time, like, he's been finished a tons of times as well, like, Wagner Hosha, who's not a striker, like, debilitated, broke this guy's leg almost. He's been finishing just tons of his losses. The only person that didn't finish him was Demir, that decision fucking rat. And yeah, so I like Dober here. I think he picks up a finish. So I'm waiting though. I think people are gonna keep betting on Alves. So I'll be careful laying the juice. But yeah, I'm gonna definitely have some KO line for Drew Dober here.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty weird fight because I don't quite know what to make of Alves. I mean, his UFC career has been, pretty confusing so far. The Contender Series fight was a decent look from him, but just not much happened in that fight before he found the finish. The Demir fight was obviously extremely boring. He had that initial success with that little knockdown, and then the rest of the fight just got controlled. And then the DKC fight was just so quick, just snatching that neck. I think he hurt him with a shot on the feet before snatching that neck, but he seems like a pretty dynamic finisher. Seems he seems like a fast starter as well. So I feel like this might be a Dober live situation, kind of similar to his last spot. Obviously, McKinney, the fight turned so quickly that there was no chance to get a live bet in. I think the tide will just turn a little quicker here, or a little slower, excuse me. I think also you can waiting to live bet Dober, you avoid that possible big explosion from Alves. That big flying knee or big, takedown attempt. I mean, he's an explosive guy early on. I think he could have initial success. I think he probably will taper off and he will slow down like he typically does. But I'm not interested in betting Dober at this chalk pre-fight. And I honestly kind of think I'm thinking a little contrarian, thinking this fight might go over. I think considering Dober obviously took up, I think, 11 or 12 minutes to get submitted by Islam. Alves, I feel like he's just not gonna want to strike too long. So if he gets hit with some shots, he's gonna, try to clinch. He's gonna try to grapple. We can kill some clock that way. And I just feel like everyone's kind of thinking this fight's gonna go under, and I think we're actually might, see this one somehow go over. So I'd be cautious with that over under there. But gun to my head pick is still going to be Dover, but it's a tough spot. I don't really like any pre-fight bets. That's going to take us to the next fight, welterweight division. Matt Semelsberger taking on Alex Morono. Semelsberger minus 160, Morono plus 140. So competitive fight here. I see both angles to the fight. I think Semmelsberger is definitely the harder hitter of the two. I think the wrestling upside is on Semmelsberger as well. He also showed pretty good cardio in his last fight versus Fletcher. And then the Morono side, you have the experience advantage, much more UFC experience, and I think an output advantage for his Morono as well. He does throw a lot of strikes, not a whole lot of substance or power behind them, but he pumps out a lot of volume, and he's not an easy guy to beat. So I think this has potential to be a close fight, probably a close decision. I'm kind of leaning this fight to go to decision as being the best bet I see on the board. They have GTD at 60% here, minus 150. I think that is, a bit generous. I think the most likely finish here is definitely Semmelsberger KO. I'm a bit concerned about that KO betting GTD, but I think the GTD is still the side here. I cap it more like 65, 68% instead of 60%. And I think honestly, money line wise, I think Semmelsberger is going to get the win here. I really think he's going to just mix up his striking and the wrestling a bit more and pull off a decision win. Not immensely confident, but I like both. I like mostly the GTD here. So I'll pass it over to you, Ozzy.
I mean, honestly, this is a fight that I do not have many thoughts on. I mean, Morono's been a hard guy for me to, get right overall because people can uh like take him down. Like I don't understand why people don't try to take this motherfucker down more often because his ground game is not that good, and or not that it's not that good. His wrestling is not that good, and he kind of accepts bottom positions sometimes. But I don't think Semmelsberger is probably going to wrestle. I think they're going to slug it out a bit. I'm kind of interested maybe in like the Semmelsberger money line as well. But I don't really think there's an edge here in this fight. I think it's kind of like priced kind of correctly, more or less. Um, and the prop side of things, like Morono has a pretty solid chin if you're not, kind of with like crazy power. And I don't think Summelsberger has, significant power at all. So I kind of like that goes the distance. Like I would pay the extra juice or I do the over the goes distance over the over, just because I think if it goes out of like the first round, like these guys like Semelsberger got tired in his last fight. I could see them starting to grapple outside of the first round a little bit, and clinch and stuff like that. And Morono like throwing leg kicks and kind of just trying to counter as well. Where as Semelsberger, he I don't think he has that much depth as a striker, so I could see him being impatient and Morono being able to counter him easily and kind of land shots and pot shot him a little bit. So, I think I'll pass on the fight money line side. I probably would pick Semelsberger, but I really think this line is pretty accurate overall. But my main bet probably here, I probably will play that ghost distance line, honestly.
All right, that's gonna do it for the prelims here. We have now five fight main card. I'd say it's a decent pay-per-view, really weak main event, obviously with Nunes headlining, but some okay fights starting the card off in the light heavyweight division. Magomed Ankalaev taking on Anthony Smith. Ankalaev 6-1 favorite. Smith coming back plus 400. Your turn to start this one off, Ozzy. What are you thinking here?
Don't love this fight. I mean, Anthony Smith, like another guy that he's weaselly, he has skills everywhere, but realistically, like, is he beating a guy like Ankalaev often? No, I don't think so. Ankalaev did get stunned a bit by Thiago Santos. That was a fucking horrible fight. Like, he should be condemned for his approach in that fight. But I think he'll pick up a win here. I probably think he'll win by decision, but I'm not really in the business. Like, I don't really want to bet like fights like these. Like, I really don't think there's like an edge on in the prop market nowhere, because Anka Live could kill a man. Like, he could murder he could murder a lot of guys at the 205 weight class, but he goes on cruise control sometimes. He gives away rounds sometimes. And like what ends up happening with guys is like Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov will start getting ahead on Ankalaev like in that first round. And then what ends up happening with those guys, they start point fighting because they're like, oh shit, like I'm winning. Like the shit that I'm doing is working. And they end up fighting like a much slower pace. And then Ankalaev starts mixing the shit up, trying more, and then he starts clawing the fight back. So I probably lean goes the distance here just because Anthony Smith is rather tough. He's pretty tough overall. I think he probably goes in with some kind of risk averse game plan, looks to kick a little bit, avoid the hands, avoid the grappling of Ankalaev, digging underhooks. But when this guy gets taken down, he goes to stalling positions. And Ankalaev, like his ground and pound is not the best. And, I could see this being a fight where like they stand him up a few times or break him up in the clinch and shit like that. So I'll pick Ankalaev and I'll lean for it to go to the cards. But I'm not very interested in this fight.
1000% agree with everything. I mean, it's an uninteresting fight, and I think it's gonna go to decision here. I mean, the odds have GTD at minus 120. Um, I mean, it's not worth. I would take the GTD over Ankalaev decision. It's only like a 30-cent difference, but um, I think Smith will approach the fight like you said, risk adverse. I think he's a decently smart fighter. I think he's gonna try to mix it up, maybe push against the cage a bit, and we've seen just Ankalaev cruise, as Ozzy was saying, man, this guy's cruised in like 3 wins in a row. Maybe he turns it up here on pay-per-view main card and goes for that finish to, kind of secure himself a title shot. But I don't know, man. I really don't see this fight ending inside the distance at 50%. That's what the odds have it at 50% of this fight finishing. I think it's way way lower than that. So maybe I'm wrong. As you guys know, I have a bad history of whenever I think the GTD is off by 10% or something like that. I'm usually wrong. So I also lost on Ankalaev's last fight inside the distance, and maybe I'm just trying to get it back now on GTD. But man, I really think that Smith is tough enough and savvy enough to kind of just wear this one out. And Ozzy had a great point about those stalling positions. Smith just he doesn't give up anything, very volatile. He just kind of lays against the cage and sits there on one knee like the Rakic fight. So I'll be betting GTD here. Next fight, flyweight division, amazing matchup here. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Alex Perez. The battle of the Alexes here, and they got Toja minus 182, Perez plus 157. Man, it's a really competitive fight. I don't have a strong conviction on this fight. I see a lot of people, most people, feeling pretty good about Perez, and I definitely think it's a lot easier to bet Perez than it is Toja. I mean, I think it's out of the question laying the chalk on Toja at near 65% here, just because it seems like Toja doesn't like being in like high pace fights. This guy is not super comfortable at a high pace. You kind of see him. He just looks tired like almost all the time when he's fighting. Like the Askarov fight, even the Cop fight at times in the Royval fight. It just doesn't seem like he does well under, pressure and high pace. And I don't think there's a whole lot of evidence of Perez, thriving under that pressure, considering he hasn't been out of round one and very often. I mean, I think it's like 6 of his past 7 fights have ended inside round one. And the one fight that went the distance, or the one or two fights, was a win over Mark De La Rosa and Eric Shelton, who are just bottom of the barrel flyweights. And now he's fighting a top five flyweight in Pantoja, and Pantoja's been top five for a few years now. I mean, he's a staple of the division, solid boxer, really good on the ground with his takedowns and his back takes. And I mean, I think this is the toughest test Perez has had outside of Figueiredo by a big margin, while Pantoja's been just fighting really steady top competition. So I think Pantoja is definitely the deserved favorite here. I think he probably might get out to an early lead when he has his cardio still. I could see him getting a good position, like a back take, but I could also see Toja slowing down at rounds 2 and 3 like he typically does, and that wrestling grind heavy style of Perez could take over. The calf kicks are going to be a big tool for Perez here, and Perez is a solid boxer of his own right here. So I have a bet on this fight. Actually, it is Perez decision only. So if the fight goes to decision, your bet is live. If it ends inside the distance, it's voided. And they have Perez at plus 150, which I think is way off. I think this is a pretty 50-50 fight if it makes it to the decision. So I definitely don't knock any bets on Perez. Maybe I'll get there to make a bet of my own, but so far nothing. And it seems like you might as well wait. I mean, you might as well wait to see where this line keeps going because it seems like Perez keeps going up. So I'll pass it over to you, Ozzy.
This is the fight that I am the most interested in this week. Okay, so I mean, going into this fight, I mean, these guys both have almost 30 total fights. Perez has a ton of regional fights, and a few, a decent number of UFC fights. And I mean, if I'm looking at this matchup, how I handicap, how I've got these guys rated overall, and the style matchup. I mean, it screams to me Alex Perez, like screams, like like max bet at Alex Perez, honestly. Um, but my biggest issue is at 125, he has not gone a hard 3 rounds. Even though he is 11-1 in decisions, which is kind of like opposite of Pantoja, right? I mean, he struggles to get down to 125. The Mark De La Rosa fight that he had that did go 3 rounds was at 135. The Shelton fight where he went three, he missed weight in that one. But I mean, I think this guy's a freaking killer. Like, I think he could. I mean, if he fought Brandon Moreno, like, I think it's a very competitive fight. It's the main thing is though is the weight cut for this guy. But skill wise, I mean, I think he and just matchup wise, I mean, I think he is the perfect guy to beat Alexandre Pantoja. I mean, people will harp on the submission losses of Perez, and for sure he's gotten caught in a few submissions. The Davison, submission was just bad technique on his part. He should have been chasing the back as opposed to, kind of going towards the guard. And I think that's an easy thing to correct. But if you look at Pantoja's, most of his submission wins, they're rear naked chokes. Like the guy is going for the back, he's going for rear naked chokes. He has like one or two triangles, like he has like one arm bar, but most of his submissions are rear nakeds. And for him to get that position on Perez, I think he's gonna either have to significantly outposition him, which I kind of mentioned when he fought Brandon Royval, that Brandon Royval is a complete fake black belt, and you saw that manifest, multiple times there. Like he just clowned Brandon. Like Brandon Royval looked like a purple belt in that fight. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. Alex Perez is a great wrestler, and you saw in Cop fight, that third round, end of the second round, like Cop is taking this guy down easily. Like he's getting in on Pantoja's legs, and Pantoja's immediately turns around, gives up his back, gives up, fighting for, against the takedown, and all that. Askarov fight, same thing happens. Now he is good at, finding the strikes and kind of he's just a natural fighter. Like this guy, he's down to exchange. You saw that in the Davison Figueiredo fight. He's down to exchange. He knows when he needs to claw fight back when he's losing. For the most part, the Askar fight I think was his worst performance overall. But you saw like the Matt Schnell fight, he's getting hit a little bit, and he's like, "Man, fuck this! Like, I can land on this guy, I could put him away." And he ends up doing that. But I think it's gonna be quite difficult for him to do that against Perez. I think Perez is gonna invest in that calf kick. I actually like Perez's striking more than Pantoja's, just because Pantoja, like I said, he just starts, throwing blitzing attacks, and Perez, like, he keeps his hands up, pretty well. He doesn't move his head the best, and he is susceptible to getting caught with a few big shots, and like I said, the weight cut again is a big thing. I don't know about his chin, how it holds up in later rounds, but matchup wise, I love Perez in this fight, and you're giving me plus 155, 160. In some areas it was up to plus 165. On the other hand, I see more people like very confident in Pantoja. And I just don't really see it because I don't think he's gonna have much grappling success. He's gonna be kicking at range with Perez, and Perez just so much intent on these leg kicks that he's chopping into people, and Pantoja's throwing these body kicks around. Like I think that Perez eventually is going to take him down, hold him down, and put some ground and pound on him. But I do kind of see the potential for Pantoja to hurt him later on in the fight. Claw these rounds back a little bit. But it's all gonna come down to the cardio of Alex Perez, how he could deal with the weight cut, and if he's gonna show up. And I think he is. So I'm considering like right now is just how big on Perez and how big and what's the right time to get in. I took a little 155 just because I thought that was the top. Obviously, it's not, but it could come back. But I did think this line would be shorter. I think the opener price is absolutely insane. Plus 220, 235 on Perez. Like this guy's just so competent everywhere. He's just so good, in my opinion. I don't know how other people feel, but I just think he's going to be able to land on Pantoja, avoid a lot of his strikes, take him down when he needs to, and it just all comes down to the conditioning. But like I said, this guy's 11-1 in decisions, and Pantoja's lost just plenty of decisions, in his career. But I think this is gonna be a highly competitive fight. You're giving me plus 160 on the dog that I think has a matchup advantage, is pretty hungry as well. A few red flags, but I'm gonna be watching weigh-ins for sure. I'm trying to get as much information here as I can. I'm trying to hit up as many people as I know that like anyone that is in the camp. I haven't gotten anything significant yet, but I think this is a great underdog spot overall. But I think I might come back with the under a little bit though because I think these guys are gonna go off in this fight. So plus 120 under 2.5. I kind of like it. I like that as well. Might be the first person to finish Pantoja if the Perez that I think is going to show up shows up.
Yeah, that under is not bad. I'll give a little credit to Toja though. That Ortiz decision and the Askarov decision, he has a case to win both fights. Honestly,
He did not win that freaking Askar
no,
fight.
I
Come
think
on.
there's a good case. There's a good case he
I
won.
remember that fight. That fight I had good money on Pantoja. And I didn't
I
think he
watched the
won. I
fight
don't
like
even
four
think it was
times, and
close.
after like the third time, I started to think that Pantoja won. Well, whatever.
Yeah, that means he lost.
Um, Next fight, heavyweight division. Derek Lewis, staple of the Texas pay per views, taking on Sergey Pavlovich, making his pay per view debut. The line here has flipped this week. Pavlovich minus 138, Lewis plus 118. So early in the week, Lewis was the favorite, and now just steady, nonstop action coming in on Pavlovich. Honestly, almost a suspicious amount of action coming in on this guy. I mean, what do you think is going on here, Ozzy? Like, what is everyone betting this guy for?
I mean, I just think that they see a guy that has some skills, at heavyweight. They saw Derek Lewis get, as soon as like that fight, I don't know, he got knocked out on like a big pay-per-view. And I mean, look, listen, I'm not betting on fucking Pavlovich. Like the guy's got some okay boxing, but this dude's thick as fuck. He's kind of I think he slows down later on just because of how like he's got a weird ass body. Like he's got a long reach, but he just looks so pudgy up top and I don't think this guy's got any leg like he does not squat at all. So I'm hoping that Derek Lewis could get this guy on the ground and fucking fuck him up. But I mean, there's not that much technical advice that I could give. Derek Lewis, he keeps his hands down. Quite often he might get hit with his jab of Pavlovich and the piercing right hand, the like Shamil did. But that Shamil fucking stoppage was BS, dude. Like that fight should have kept going. Like Shamil, he got hurt with that punch, but he was completely fine. After a few of those ground and pound shots. Um, Derek. I mean, you don't know what. I mean, Derek's been doing this win loss thing recently. Like, I mean, you're giving me plus 120 on Lewis. Like, I think I probably end up taking it or waiting for like a little bit better, like 120, whatever I could get. Like, I'm trying to get the best price on that. But I just think Pavlovich, like, he's definitely could be an absolute fraud here. And he gave up himself against Overeem, and yeah, I don't think he's all that great. But I'm probably not gonna bet the fight honestly. But if I get a good enough number on Derek, like it can't hurt. Like what? Like how bad could it be? But I don't know. Obviously Pavlovich has way better boxing. He should be able to land a few punches here, but he's never fought a dude like Derek Lewis. So, you get Lewis dog money. I think it's okay.
He has fought a guy like Lewis that his name's Alistair Overeem, but the fight didn't go that well for him.
Murdered.
Tough debut, but I mean, I took some Pavlovich at plus money. But once he gets a minus next to his name, you cannot be betting this guy. I mean, he's a unit. He seems to have pretty good boxing. You got to admit the uppercut he caught Shamil with, very nice punch. Very fast hands. You don't really know what he's made of outside of that. We haven't seen him late in fights. We don't know, really much about his grappling. We did see him get taken down and smashed versus Overeem on the ground. And Lewis actually attempted and hit a nice little inside trip versus Tai Tuivasa there, but wasn't able to keep him down. But you got to think Lewis. You got to question Lewis's, motivation at this point. I mean, he's never going to get to a title. He lost his past two fights at home in Texas and Houston. This one's in Dallas, so a bit different. But I mean, I do get the vibe that Lewis is, just not really putting that much effort into this these days, and that's why he really shouldn't be a favorite. Because also his style in general has always been just unloading and reloading and a lot of waiting around looking for that kill shot. And that's just not a good style to bet a guy as a favorite. He's a decent underdog historically, but you can't be betting him as a favorite. That's why I took the Pavlovich at plus money. It's gotten out of hand though. I mean, Derek Lewis is easily the side at this point. Please do not put a single dollar on Pavlovich above, 55% where he's at now. So probably just going to be a swinging match in round one. Um, I don't have a great history of betting against Derek Lewis, and maybe it'll keep going even worse for me here. But we'll see how it goes. And I'm sticking with my Pav at plus money. Co-main event time, a rematch of a flyweight fight that happened back in 2019, I believe. The former champion Brandon Moreno taking on Kai France, interim championship here, 5-round fight. The first fight, uh, France was getting the better of the exchanges in round one unanimously, but then Moreno started turning it up in rounds two and three, hitting some nice body shots and really controlling the fight to secure the last two rounds easily. So, pretty clear winner of the first fight, but it's still an interesting rematch. I think it's my turn to start this one off. So, I mean, the first fight, Kai was landing some nice counters, some nice punches. Specifically, that right hand left hook combination was catching the chin of Moreno early on. And Moreno has never been a great defensive boxer. He's always had crazy durability and kind of relied on that durability a little bit to get him through these fights. But as we saw in his last fight against Moreno, he finally got hurt and got dropped clean by a punch there. And that might be a sign that all these wars that Moreno has been through it, I think that damage might be adding up, especially, he seems like a guy who goes hard in sparring as well. So even though he's young, I think he might be under 30 still, a lot of mileage on Moreno. And but Kai France is, an extremely skilled boxer. He's been leveling up a lot lately, showed some good cardio in his past fight versus Askarov. And I think Kai's gonna, be live here at plus 180. I think he's gonna be looking a lot better than plus 180 live here. And you got to think Moreno, the fight favors Moreno the more it goes on. The first fight, that's what happened. Moreno's been 5 rounds, a lot more. He's been 5 rounds recently. And, he's looked, I think he actually didn't look that great in the last fight against Figueredo in the later rounds. But still, yeah, I think that cardio advantage is going to favor him. And I just feel like it's going to be a close boxing fight, man. These guys are going to be in each other's faces. They're going to be boxing the entire time. I think it will go into the later rounds, the fourth and the fifth round, even though they will be trading the entire time. But they're flyweights, they're little guys. I feel like they're going to be able to absorb each other's biggest shots. And, I think eventually Moreno is probably going to edge out a decision here, maybe 3 rounds to 2, maybe even 4 rounds to 1. But I think Kai is going to look live early. So maybe wait off on any bets here and look to live bet Moreno if he drops a round or two. And I think this one should go over. It should go to the decision. I feel pretty good about it going into the championship round. So maybe look to play some form of an over here. And, great matchup. Really looking forward to this fight.
Yeah, so I mean, this fight, uh, I Kai's solid overall. He's not the worst, but he needs moments in some of these fights. Like he's just so apathetic in there. I feel like if he's not having like a lot of success, like similar to that Cody Garbrandt fight where he's like, able to counter him, able to clearly land big shots. Like you saw in the Askar fight, he was kind of just scared of him at some point, like in terms of their grappling. And he's just not, pulling the trigger. And a lot of his strikes, in my opinion, are kind of like I mean, I think he could definitely land on Brandon Moreno. Like Brandon Moreno is not hard to hit, in my opinion. He's kind of he kind of looks at his work sometimes in there as well. He kind of got connected on by Davison a number of times, but I feel like Davison is a more consistent heavy hitter than Cara France is. Like Cara France, he could have some of the power in like the first round and stuff, but outside the first round, he doesn't really have any like KO wins. I don't really think. He really loads up on and kind of leaves. He has that few strong shots, I feel, but he is accurate when he is able to put some steam on the shots. So I could see him hurting Brandon early on, but I think Brandon Moreno is going to be able to work these clinch takedowns. Like he hit, I think one or two on Davison, that I thought were really really well timed overall. Especially I think in that fifth round he landed a really good one. And I think that that is very live here against Kai. And I think that if he does get Kai on the ground, I think he's going to be able to get some control time, put him flat on the mat, maybe progress position to a dominant position. But yeah, I think that Kai has some faults in the conditioning overall. I think he needs to like land, some big strikes in the first like 2 rounds to be able to win this fight. But I'm not betting on Moreno. Like laying 200, definitely not my thing here. I feel like yeah, it probably does go later on. But I mean, I feel like Kai's gonna be looking to exchange with Moreno early on. And I could see Moreno like getting one of these takedowns and starting to like, tee off on him. But I could also see this fight being, like you said, the live bet kind of fight where, it's kind of swinging back and forth, both of them having moments. So I will be looking to live bet Brandon Moreno at some point. Opposite to you, I actually did think that he looked very good in those fourth and fifth rounds against Figueiredo, and to me, that's as close as a fight can be for the most part. Like it really came down to those fourth and fifth rounds, and I mean, I watched it again today, and I mean, you could definitely score that fight from Moreno. Like, I would not like. I was surprised that it was a unanimous decision for Davison. And I do think that Moreno probably has a little bit of a gripe there, just because I think some of the shots that he was landing were going unnoticed, but were actually pretty solid. So I'll pick Brandon Moreno here, and I will be looking for some live entries on him. I think this is a solid matchup for him overall. I just think he's able to mix in the kicks and the grappling in a way that Cara France is not really that comfortable with.
That's going to take us to the main event, the long anticipated rematch. People have been talking about this fight all over the world since it happened, just eagerly anticipating the rematch. We have the champion Juliana Pena as the plus 240 underdog to the former champion Amanda Nunes plus or minus 280 on the comeback. And I believe the first fight, the line closed at around the line on bet on it looked like minus 1200, minus 1,000 for Nunez. I think plus 700 or something like that on Pena on the comeback. But I saw, I mean, I think Ozzy, didn't you bet like 870 or something? I feel like didn't you? I feel like you bet 800 on Pena. Um, is that true?
Yeah, it was like 840 plus 840, and then even after round one, I kind of got in after watching that. I was like seven. It was like 700. I was like, let me take a little bit more. So I made some bags on that. That was solid. But I've lost a lot on Amanda Nunes fights. Like I've been trying to fade this woman for like 3 fights. Besides the Megan Anderson fight.
Well, yeah, the first fight, Nunes, won the first round. She got a takedown. She controlled Pena a little bit, but overall, some competitive grappling exchanges. Nunes didn't really get any super dominant position. She had a brief back take, I think. And then in round two, man, I mean, Nunes just collapsed. I mean, just started exchanging. Nunes's defense was horrible. She was eating the sloppiest punches, and Pena just, smelled blood and went for it. I mean, the best Pena's striking has ever looked. She just spam punches, and it was somehow enough to defeat the greatest women's fighter ever. Imagine that, being the greatest women's fighter ever, and just a little shitty jab from a lifetime grappler is all you need to just dismantle your entire career. So, I talked about the last fight first. What's your analysis of this fight, Ozzy? What are you looking to bet here?
Yeah, so I mean, the first fight, the over under was lined at 1.5, and now we have a 2.5, right? So it took steam the first fight, closed like minus 170, 160. And I think that's like the angle that I'm liking the most here a bit, just because I feel like, even with all the volume that Juliana hit her with, like it was one, still kind of competitive, and then two, they both were kind of slowing down a little bit. Like that pace was insane in that second round. I feel like the takedowns are still live a bit for Nunez, but I kinda like Pena overall, just because of, like, her grit, her, competency in the grappling area as well. She just is able to make these women, like, go into a fight and sh she's not Nate Diaz, let me not put it, but, like, Nate Diaz, the way he wins a lot of the fights, like, versus Conor, like, the first fight, was he gives so many opportunities for you to hit him that you get tired of hitting him. And, that's not exactly what happened versus Pena, but Nunez she was not able. She was trying to put out offense, but it was just not effective. Like she was used to hitting girls and then them just falling over, right? And at this 135 weight class, I feel she just has way less bullets in the chamber, and those bullets also are much less potent. Like those right hand, she was hitting her. She was hitting her and throwing pretty solid right hands and jabs and left hooks in that second round. They just weren't doing anything, to Juliana. Juliana was, yeah, she was just like totally cool with, eating those. And if you look, the GDR fight was at 135 as well, but that was a fight that went to a decision, right? The Holly Holm fight, she landed a head kick on Holly Holm, right? She didn't really like land crazy punches on her. So I think there's something lacking with the woman at 135. I feel that Juliana Pena could potentially get some grappling going later on. Maybe she might lose the first round again, like she did the first fight. But I mean, I just think the changeover. She used to do this like split camp bullshit between Washington and Chicago. I think the Chicago team is actually pretty good. They're really leaning into this ovaries. Who's got the biggest ovaries? Angle, which I brought that up again, like for Misha Tate. That was an inside joke. I was like, Misha Tate's ovaries could probably fit in the salt shaker, but they're taking it to a whole nother level this weekend. But I mean, I think it's a little valid with the fact that like it's just at this weight class, like it's not the weight class for Amanda Nunes. Like she's cutting a decent amount of weight. Like Juliana's she's not small, but she makes this weight no issue. I think she could go a hard five if she needs to. And I just think she's gonna be able to cook Amanda potentially in some of these areas where Amanda she's gonna get tired. Like who is this woman training with? Now that she's left aka ATT. Like she's got that little gym over there, but like she's really training with women that are sparring with her and pushing her. I seriously doubt it. But like I said, I like the over 2.5. I think it'll play out a little bit further. I think there'll be some clinching in this fight. I think Amanda's gonna look to slow the fight down at some points because Juliana will look to push the pace at some points. But yeah, I kind of still lean with the Juliana side, even at this like plus 220, I guess is the number here, right? 240. Oh, 240 is a pretty good solid number, I feel. 30% for Pena to potentially finish her or take a decision where Nunes ends up slowing down. I like it. So I lean Juliana over 2.5, and I think she will keep this belt.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with the leans there. Oh, I'm seeing over 2.5 at plus money on FanDuel. Did that line just pop up or something like that? Um, I think it did, yeah, it came out earlier
Did
today.
it? Did
So, I'm also interested over 2.5. I mean, the first fight was a crazy pace. It obviously unfolded in dramatic fashion, and it still went over 1.5, right? I mean, I I
did? Yep.
I just don't see it being that dramatic and crazy, as obviously the first fight. And I mean, Nunes, like you said, she's training at a different camp now. That was her first time cutting weight down to 135 in 2 years. So it was sort of expected that she would look terrible. But I mean, man, dude, just how terrible she looked in that fight and just the way she unraveled. I mean, it's got to be just demoralizing. This woman, double champion, hadn't lost in so many years. And then to just lose in such embarrassing and pathetic fashion, tapping to a no hook rear naked choke. Not only did that choke have no hooks, it wasn't even under the chin. I,
It was like on her fucking like fate, like her
like,
lips,
if
like her
if we
nose
saw
and his
that in,
lip.
like, the prelims from, like, Ryan Spann or something like that, we'd be like, "Oh, that's some fucking weak shit," and this is allegedly the greatest woman's fighter of all time tapping to, a choke with no hooks and not even under the chin. I mean, it's just crazy, and I really think it's gotta be, a big mental hurdle to overcome here. I'm not sure Nunes is gonna be able to overcome this. I mean, this might be the end of Nunes, honestly. Um, and like you said, a great point about who she training with. That's a huge factor here. Peyton has got all the confidence in the world. She definitely seems like a little bit better at this 135 weight class. I think we have a little bit less to worry about with her making the weight cut. And man, I don't have any extreme analysis for this fight. I don't like rematches that much. I don't like Nunes fights. So this is definitely not a fight I'm really looking forward to. But I hope Pena does it again. I hope she pulls it off. I kind of agree with what with Ozzy was saying is Nunes probably might win early on here with her grappling again. I'm not sure, man. It's hard to tell what Nunes's approach is going to be here. Is she going to be scared of the striking because that's where it really all went bad for her last time? Maybe she grapples super heavy. Maybe she slows down again. I don't think that she can sustain a grappling heavy pace with Pena for more than 2 rounds without slowing down. I think Pena's grappling cardio is just way better. So I'm hoping this fight goes over. I'm hoping Pena wins. I think I'm gonna place one unit on that over. Right after the podcast ends at plus money. It's the best price available on the market, and I think it might even continue to get bet. So I think I'm gonna be taking that Pena over, and or I mean I'm just gonna be taking the over, and I hope Pena can get it done. But no real strong convictions on that fight, obviously. And that's going to do it for this week. 13 fights down. That brings us to our best bet parlay of the week, back to back weeks of winners. I forget what the week prior was. Oh, it was Burgos for me and Ricky for you. Burgos, shaky bet. Ricky, great bet. Last week, again for me, shaky bet on my goes the distance on the Wood Rosa. You had a great bet on Jack. Easily covered that price. So what's it gonna be this week, Ozzy? What I think you should. I think you should go first.
Think I should go first. So, I mean, honestly, I was in the if Kim was still plus money, I would have done Kim because I just think she's gonna freaking jab this woman up. A lot of these fights, like I have a few bets like this week, but a lot of them have been kind of like moving a little bit, like Dontel Mays and a number of those bets. Um, I want to do Perez. Like I feel money line wise, like I feel Perez is like the best, value bet on the board. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm not gonna do that one. I'm gonna do the one we just talked about. I'm gonna do the Pena-Nunes over 2.5. As my
Mm,
mm, you know what? I'm going with Alex Perez.
okay, I like it. I
Yeah,
like
I
it.
just I just like him overall. Like, yeah, could he get caught a little bit here? Yes, but I mean, like we argued on Spaces last fucking night, how this fight is gonna play out. I think you're gonna feel so good, as long as this guy doesn't have a botch weight cut, and if that happens, the fight's fucking canceled. I think you're gonna feel real good having an Alex Perez ticket as this fight is playing out. So I'll take Alex Perez on the money line, plus 157 or 160, depending on if we do bet
It's
online
on
or
draft. I'm keeping him
DraftKings.
with DraftKings, and so
Let's
plus
do it.
160 for Perez. Um, And then I'm taking Mays ITD plus 130. I'm taking a plus money prop. I really think Mays is going to stop this guy in the second or third round, probably from top position like he just did. And
Let's do
that's
it.
going to be two
Let's
plus
do it.
money. That plus 130 plus 160 comes out to plus 498. So 500 odds on this one. Let's see if we can keep that momentum going. Back to back winners
Ooh.
and back to back profit in weeks. So, you know, historically, I feel like pay-per-views aren't our strongest suit, Ozzy, but
Not the best, not
no.
the best, but I feel like I'm honing in. I mean, I'm getting CLV on all these lines, obviously, but I'm feeling good about this. Like I'm spreading myself out a little bit on this card, and yeah, I'm liking the prospects of it.
Me too, me too. I'm gonna put in some bets now for sure. I think I'm gonna put in three more bets, so make sure you check that out on my Bet MMA. My picks are all up there for free. Aussies are behind a little bit of a wall, but you can always get them from him. And that'll be everything.
I fucking told these people basically everything I'm fucking
That's
betting
true.
on.
That's true. I mean, well, yeah, yeah. Just listen to the fucking podcast, bros. Any closing thoughts here, Ozzy?
No, not really. Just, you shit all over that main event, but like I said, I told you, Juliana winning that title was for me, a religious experience, and I hope that she fucking smashes Amanda Nunes after 12 and a half minutes, round 3 submission ideally. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this card. So, let's
Yeah,
do it.
that was the hardest I've ever laughed during a pro MMA fight. Was that Nunes fight? I love that. So, some CFFC, some LFA this weekend.
LFA, LFA, you're going to have to you see if you I got some good ones for LFA. I got some good ones for that
Contender
one.
series is back, like you said. Body Bags picked up a good win. Risen's going on Saturday, Sunday morning or something like that. So a lot of fights going on. We'll be back next week before the next UFC. Thank you all to listening. Hope you all win some bets this weekend, and we'll see you all before the next UFC card. Peace out, everybody.